Obviously, the majority of the day is going to be spent on Vandy. They'll have game 2 tonight against Mississippi State. Knock on wood, no weather delays. No delays just in general. Man, I could not – I panicked when I saw that the game was delayed because I did not see initially the reporting on the weather. I thought it was some kind of COVID incident yet again, and I went into scramble mode trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And all I saw on ESPN was like The Jump, a rerun of The Jump from earlier in the day, talking about the NBA playoffs. I said, no, damn it, give me the college baseball. Finally, they were able to get that thing underway and absolutely dominant in the course of that first game against Mississippi State on the strength of Jack Leiter and an incredible first inning. We are going to spend some time on that, of course, Kevin Kugler, who was on the call for Westwood One, because, of course, we're carrying the College World Series on this very station, 104.5 The Zone, for all of your College World Series coverage and the games, beginning at 6 p.m. tonight. But we'll talk with Kevin about the series coming up next. I have a question, though, before we get started. Hello, Lucas. How are we?
Good. How are we? How are you? Great start.
You okay? That's not how exactly, I'm trying to work you in.
That's not how people talk.
No, buddy, it's not how people
I'm good.
talk.
No, Mike just called in. I just had hopped off the phone. He didn't want to talk on the air, but he had issue with you calling what Vanderbilt did last night total domination.
What do you mean? They won 8-2.
He said if it wasn't for one inning, that's a tight game.
But there was the one inning.
There was the one inning. The inning happened.
They piled on 7 runs in the one inning.
Right. He didn't want to be on the air.
Oh, yeah, because he's wrong. You said Mike?
Yes.
Mike.
Mike from Nashville.
What the hell are you talking about, bud? We appreciate the call, even the callers that don't make. How many calls would you say that you take don't actually make it to air? Because we have plenty of callers around here. But how many are one, people just screaming at you about something that I've said?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's not just limited to you. It happens on Blaine and Mickey as well. I'd say about 40% of the calls I field are either, answer the phone and then the take just starts pouring into my ear, or I don't want to be on the air, but I just wanted to say ... But yes, Mike, the one inning does count.
The one
as
inning
part
was
of the
there.
9.
Like what?
It counts on the scoreboard.
How do people do the analysis that way?
Like if you score 12 runs in one inning and win 12-1,
you still scored 12 runs in an inning.
Domination.
So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm not really out here on a limb, Mike. An 8-2 win.
Not to mention Jack Leiter's on the mound, and anytime Vandy puts up any kind of lead and Leiter's dealing the way he is, you don't feel good about your chances in coming back, much less a 7-1 deficit after one.
That's what I'm saying. Like there was no way that could go in Mississippi State's favor outside of some weirdness like we saw in the Stanford game. But okay, Mike's complaint has been noted. 615-737-1045 is how you get in on the conversation. Before we deep dive on this game, and we'll do that with Kevin Kugler, who was on the call for Westwood One. He's coming up next. I want to know what the hell J. Martin Ramon doing here for 4 hours before I walk in. Now, what people don't know is that when we have this Zone TV feed where you can watch us, all of the shows on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitter, coming to you from all over the place, that the chat, because people leave comments in the chat across the 4 social media platforms, the chat just keeps like going from one show to the next. So I'm looking, because we just got started, I'm looking at the majority of chat messages from J Mart and Ramon, and they're talking about Jackie Legs off Kangaroo Jack. I'm looking at Caillou, the cartoon character. Like, what the hell did they do in here for 4 hours this morning?
About the Patriot, the Mel Gibson movie?
I'm disoriented. Holding you guys responsible for Sir Ron? Are they the caretakers of Ron Slay while he's in Vegas? I don't understand what happened on the morning show this morning. 615-737-1045. Buck was at it last night on A to Z, tuned in the last couple of minutes, says Casey on YouTube. Yeah, the A to Z Sports Prime Time Show, Sunday to Thursday night at 8 p.m. 615-737-1045 is how you get involved in the proceedings. We start with the first caller of the day on the air, and it's Charlie in Franklin. What's going on, Charlie?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning to you.
I don't know if I don't want to make it like I know everything on birds, but does you all realize that his shrill is from the mockingbird? The mockingbird can do 10 different sounds, but his signature sound is a 3 shrill sound.
Wait,
So
Charlie. Whose signature sound? Who are you talking about?
The bird, the whistler.
Oh,
the whistler is imitating a
Vandy
mockingbird.
Whistler?
Yes.
Oh,
it's
okay.
an actual bird. You can go to any golf course, walk down the fairway, and you'll hear that same shrill time after time. He can do that by the hour. The bird can. It's a natural trait of his. But he also can do 10 other sounds. That's why they call him a mockingbird. But he is our state bird, and I don't know that he's doing it intentionally. But you can go to no woods in Middle Tennessee and not hear that same 3 shrill sound.
Okay, Charlie, does that make you enjoy the Vandy Whistler? Because I hate him. I can't stand him.
I'm sorry. I don't enjoy it either. I'm not saying that.
I was about to
I'm
say,
just
Charlie,
saying
you're the first person in the history of the world, if you are, to advocate for the Vandy Whistler.
Not at all. I'm not saying that, but I play golf over at Harpeth Hills all the time,
Sure.
and that bird is sounding off all the time. You just can't hardly play over here and not hear that 3 shrill sound.
Okay, so thank you for the call, Charlie. 615-737-1045. He started talking about birds. It's like, the hell is he talking about? No, the Vandy Whistler, man. The dude, the before we get into the baseball itself, the Whistler, the stamina, honestly, is impressive because that dude does not stop. You hear the Mississippi State packed the house yesterday in Omaha. Like, their fans were into it, and then immediately the fans were taken out of it because Vandy put 7 on them in the first inning. The first, and Kevin Kugler may need to fact check me on this because I'm pretty sure I heard on the broadcast, on the ESPN broadcast yesterday, that the Mississippi State pitcher who started the game is the first in the history of the College World Series, the final series, to be pulled in one inning. Because Vandy, and listen, Vandy wasn't like shelling him or anything like that. They loaded the bases really without really testing the Mississippi State defense at all to begin that sort of run that they started when they ended up putting 7 runs on them in the bottom of the first. But yes, the Vandy Whistler, the stamina is exceptional. I don't care if he's imitating the Mockingbird or not. He needs to shut the hell up. I'm so done with this man. And I know, I'm late to the party on that. It's not necessarily an unpopular opinion, but the Vandy Whistler, shoot it straight into the sun. Enough. 615-737-1045 is how you get involved this morning. Sandy is at Rocky Mound, Tennessee. What's going on, Sandy?
Hey, good morning, Buck. It's hard to follow a Mockingbird call, but I was just wondering how many of the North Carolina State players that tested positive were vaccinated. You guys know that?
Lucas, and thank you for the call, Sandy. We want to make sure that we're factually accurate on this. There were 4 players, if I'm not mistaken, who were vaccinated and did test positive for COVID-19.
Right, and another 4 ultimately that tested positive that were not vaccinated. They had a total of 8 positive tests.
Right. So that is so I don't know. I haven't seen any update on the status of those players. I hope that everybody who did test positive for COVID is recovering. And
some were symptomatic, and NC State's head coach had mentioned it in the lead up that some players had caught the bug, and a couple players were kind of sitting out of practice and whatnot.
Caught the bug. Good God. 615-737-1045. What Uncle Bob is saying on YouTube is confusing me. The Vandy Whistler just called in, says Casey. No, Charlie is not the Vandy Whistler.
For a moment, I was about to ask, is this the Vandy Whistler under an alias?
We know Charlie. Charlie is a familiar voice around here on the Zone airwaves. Charlie is the one who's told me if he was a player, he would swing on me.
Yes,
right?
He is anti-Whistler.
All love Charlie. But what Z-Tubs is saying that J. Martin Ramon did this morning was which character is the worst, most annoying, and can catch these hands when I see them. So just like general pop culture characters that they were annoyed by. Like, we got NBA playoffs. We got College World Series. We got all manner of drama in the NFL. And my guys are doing, the worst, most annoying, just general television characters that they want to swing on? I love them both. and Schaefer.
Very on brand for them.
I mean, spot on. Caillou is the Vandy Whistler. Is the Vandy Whistler's bratty son, says James. Yeah, I remember the cartoon Caillou. But not, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that today. Mark Mabry on YouTube says, if I were a Vandy fan and attended games, I would take the 15 days for simple assault to shut him up. Oh, talking about the Whistler. Yeah. I mean, he has to know that what he does, nobody likes, right? It's not like Tim Corbin has ever been effusive in his praise for the Whistler's support.
Oh, he knows. I think he enjoys it. Oh, I'm talking about the Whistler.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. You would have to, right? Because you're just out. Not only you're not like an internet troll. You're not like a tolerable troll. No, you're in people's face. You're literally in people's ear. And it's loud as hell, so loud that we can hear it on the television broadcast. And I imagine if you were listening on 104.5 The Zone to the College World Series with Kevin Kugler, our next guest on the call, you probably could hear remnants of the Whistler through that broadcast as well. We will dive into Vandy versus Mississippi State, not NC State. The second game didn't happen, so that's not something we're going to talk about. But game 2 will be tonight. What should the expectation be for Vanderbilt? Because yesterday they sure as hell cruised. They may be one win away from securing back-to-back College World Series titles. We'll get into that with Kevin Kugler of Westwood One coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The guys like to talk, and you like to listen. Blaine and Mickey, this afternoon 1 to 3 on 104.5 The Zone.
I think that's the question that everybody is asking today, whether Vanderbilt is just going to, or at least locally, we're all considering whether Vanderbilt could just roll through this thing the way that they did yesterday, certainly with a strong first inning and on the arm of Jack Leiter as well to get things going for them. But before we get into the baseball itself, Kevin, I know that you kind of got your big break with the College World Series. You're from Nebraska, so I'm certain it has significant meaning to you. What's it like to be able to be a participant in an event that's as cool as this one, and one that has significant significance to you?
Yeah, and you're right, it does. I mean, it's the event that I went through growing up. I mean, I grew up in Lincoln, which is about 40 minutes from here, and it was the big summer event. And then when I moved to Omaha, worked here as a teenager, and then moved here, it's just become part of summer, which is why last summer was one of the many reasons why last summer was not a great summer, because you just sort of wandered around in Omaha wondering what in the world you were supposed to do with your time when normally you spend it at the College World Series in June. So it's been nice to have it back from that standpoint. But, yeah, there's a certain nostalgia to it, even though it's not at Rosenblatt anymore, which is where I went growing up. It is still the College World Series. It's still a fantastic event, and it's just it's one of those moments that I mark my calendar by every year. This is College World Series time, so you know that when you're in the last couple of weeks of June, that's where you are. You're at the ballpark every day. You're watching college baseball. You're crowning a national champion, and then the calendar sort of resets, and the next thing you know, it's football season.
No question about it. We Vanderbilt fans have become accustomed to this part of the sports calendar, certainly, with all the success that program has had. Kevin Coogler here with us on 104.5 The Zone. You can follow him at Kevin Coogler on the socials. So to that end, I mean, I thought that Vanderbilt absolutely cruised yesterday, even though they did most of their damage in that first inning, Kevin. What I guess kind of stood out to you about the performance that Vanderbilt was able to put on display?
Well, I thought a championship program showed up last night, and I recognize that most of the guys in that lineup didn't have anything to do with the title a couple of years ago, but you see this all across sports. When you establish a culture in a program, there is a certain standard that you apply, and it applies regardless of lineup. Doesn't mean you always win, but I thought on a big stage with a crowd pressing upon them that was certainly not in their favor. That was a crowd that was heavily tilted toward Mississippi State. I said on air last night that if you were going to commit a crime in Starkville, this is the time to do it in Starkville, Mississippi, because there's nobody there right now. That town is empty. They're all in Omaha. They were at a frenzy after Cameron James hit the home run in the top of the first to give them a 1-0 lead. And I thought the patience showed by Vanderbilt in that first inning was a remarkable accomplishment. And I don't know that it gets enough credit. This is a group of kids who are on this stage, this team, for the first time in their lives. Giant stage, angry crowd, hostile, yelling, screaming, drowning out their fan base. And they walk out, they take a couple of walks, they get hit, they steal a base, they calmly execute, and then the big blows at the end from Thomas and Gonzalez, the double and the home run that essentially put the game away at that moment with a 7-run first inning. You cannot start a game any better than that. And then you have Jack Leiter, who wasn't as good as he was the Monday prior, but he was certainly good enough to hold Mississippi State in check, and then Nick Maldonado took over for the final 3 innings. I thought it was a perfect storm for Vanderbilt now, with the notion that even if things don't go right tonight, you've probably got Kumar Rocker on nearly full rest getting ready for Wednesday. This is a scenario that works very well for Coach Corbin and his program, and I thought the patience they showed in that first inning was remarkable.
That hostile crowd wasn't enough to drown out the Vandy Whistler. I could hear him very, very clearly through the television broadcast.
You can't miss that dude. He is always evident in Omaha.
Oh, just the absolute worst. Is that distracting to you at all as a broadcaster? Like, you're sitting there, you're trying to do the game, you're used to environments, and listen, we have our feelings, our sentiments about the Vandy Whistler here locally. I'm not sure. I know you are a professional. You don't want to put any evil on this man. I have made my feelings about it known, but is it a hindrance at all to you that he continues to do that no matter what the score of the game is and continues to just harp in people's ears that way?
I'm just glad I don't have to sit next to him. I'll just say that, because if I had to sit next to him, there's a buddy of mine that runs a T-shirt shop up here in Omaha, and he has created a T-shirt that he is selling throughout the week that all it says is "Ban the Vandy Whistler."
Oh.
So I assume he has sold several of those shirts to Mississippi State fans as he sets up shop around the College World Series.
Listen, he could make a killing here in Nashville. We all want to send this guy into the sun, but I digress. Kevin Kugler here with us on 104.5 The Zone. So to that end, getting, as you mentioned, Kumar Rocker potentially back if this thing does go 3 games on nearly full rest. I mean, Leiter yesterday had the benefit of being well rested because of the way that Vandy and NC State's situation played out the way that it did with a no contest. I mean, it is obviously an advantage to have rest in a postseason like the College World Series, Kevin, but how much do you think it played into the result that we saw last night between these two teams?
I think it helped, and where it helped more was the fact that Mississippi State didn't have rest. The lack of rest and the lack of ability to set up their starting rotation. Playing on Saturday hurt Mississippi State in that game. If you don't have to play on Saturday, if they win that Friday game, they have Will Bednar on full rest for that opening game, and maybe it goes differently. I mean, Bednar's been terrific throughout this College World Series. He's been terrific all year, and if they have him, maybe things are different for Mississippi State in game one. But because they had to play that Saturday game, the rotation got all out of kilter. So you start Christian McLeod, who was on full rest, but he just couldn't find the strike zone last night. And then they had to go bullpen. One benefit for Mississippi State was they were down 7-1 at the end of the first inning. They didn't use too many of their high leverage guys out of the pen, so they've still got their best bullpen guys on rest for tonight. Which they're going to start. They're going to start a left-hander that's start. You may see 4 or 5 innings out of him, which he did earlier in the series. But if you need bullpen after Houston Harding from Mississippi State tonight, they have some of those guys in the pen. Obviously, Vanderbilt does as well, only using Nick Moss in the bullpen past their starting pitcher tonight.
Would you say that, because I was getting ready to ask you, what is the silver lining, if any, for Mississippi State? Would you say that it is the fact that they still have their bullpen largely intact?
Yeah, I think it is, and I thought it was smart management last night by their head coach, Chris Lemonis, because they brought in guys that you haven't seen a lot. Casey Hunt hadn't pitched in the postseason. Jackson Fristow has been in and out of the starting rotation, but he hasn't seen much action. Brandon Smith and Cade Smith are guys that you use a little. And Chase Patrick, who's been in some, didn't go a long time last night, so I would assume he's available again tonight. That's the silver lining, is that we're down so much that a comeback against Jack Leiter seemed unlikely. So they were able to run out some guys that in a high leverage situation probably aren't getting the opportunity, but because of the score the way it was last night, they could run those guys out there and save that pin for when they might need it tonight. For example, no Landon Sims last night. You didn't need your closer. He can go 2 or 3 innings now because he's got a couple of days off.
Kevin Kugler of Westwood One here with us on 104.5 The Zone. He was on the call last night for Vandy, Mississippi State Game 1. He will be on the call tonight as well.
Kevin, taking a step back here and looking at this event as a whole, it feels like it's a bigger deal with each passing year. And maybe that's here in Nashville with Vanderbilt always in the conversation, and now this year Tennessee was in there. But as a guy who's been covering this thing for a long time, like Buck said off the top, you kind of got a break in your career at the College World Series with Westwood One. Now you're doing the play-by-play. How much have you seen this thing grow just as it moved to TD Ameritrade, the coverage, the fans, just everything? How much progress have you seen the College World Series make along with college baseball over the years?
Well, a ton, and I think that's huge for the sport. I do think one thing the sport needs to see is more regional diversification. I'd like to see a couple of northern teams really commit to baseball and become strong. It's hard to do, I know, because in the spring the weather is not conducive to college baseball across the country. But I do think you have the sport. That's the next step for the sport to grow even further. Is right now it's so West Coast and Southeastern dominated, which is fine because we have some great baseball coming out of those locales. But if you really want to make it a national sport, it's got to have some draw from the northern states as well. Big Ten needs to find somebody who's good in baseball. Maybe that'll be Nebraska. Maybe it's Michigan. We saw them here against Vanderbilt a couple of years ago. But they need some consistent presence in order to continue to grow this sport. But it has grown a lot since, even since I was a kid going to these games, because you now see the attention nationally. People pay attention to this more on a national level. They recognize some of the names that are in it. And I think people are understanding, and Major League Baseball has helped in this, in that Major League Baseball is using college baseball more now as a place where some of their top prospects come from. They're recognizing rockers and lighters and guys who are in the college game as being closer to big league ready than maybe a high schooler that they sign right out of high school. Doesn't mean they're not going to sign those guys, but these college guys have had 2 or 3 years of good coaching, and in a lot of programs like Vanderbilt and Mississippi State, decent arm management, so you're not getting overworked pitchers. I think as all of those things come together, a little more northern influence, maybe a little bit more attention from the major leagues. The draft is going to be in Omaha, we think, in the next year or so that's going to certainly help. All of that coming together tends to make this sport grow, and the more you can link it to the bigs, the more you can link it to professional baseball, is only going to help the sport grow even more when you can see that direct connection going from college to Major League Baseball.
Certainly there was regional diversification when at least for Chris Lemonis in his last job, he was coaching up my Indiana Hoosiers to a College World Series appearance and then jumped ship for Mississippi State, where he's clearly having success. Kevin Kugler here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Kevin, I guess the job of a play-by-play broadcaster is obviously to set the scene of the event that they are calling, that they are at, but it is as much about storytelling as anything else. At least that's the way that I've looked at it as somebody who consumes play-by-play as opposed to doing it. If Vanderbilt is to be successful tonight and get another College World Series championship under Tim Corbin and for this university, for this program, what does that do for the story of Tim Corbin and Vanderbilt baseball?
It's just I don't, and I know the story's been told. And I know that it's been told nationally. I just don't know that people recognize just what an amazing program Tim Corbin has built. Obviously, he's a stand-up guy. Everybody who's spent any time with Tim Corbin is likely a better person for having spent those moments with him, because he's so smart. He is so thoughtful when it comes to how he breaks down the game and how he breaks down the raising of his team. He looks at this in a lot of ways like a father does with their children. Your job is to help these kids grow both on and off the field, and he embraces that role. But when you're talking about a program, and this is no disparaging comment to anyone before Tim Corbin, but when you'd had one postseason appearance in 24 years before Tim Corbin arrived at Vanderbilt, and for Tim Corbin to be in the 5th College World Series in the last 10 years, and to have a chance to be back-to-back national champions and continue the longest reign, essentially, of a national champion, going on 3 years if they win tonight or tomorrow night, it is a story that puts him into a class of really rare coaches across sport. I mean, you're starting to put him into the conversation of, you know, like a Mike Krzyzewski of basketball. And I recognize that it's hard to compare sport to sport, legacy to legacy. But when Mike Krzyzewski took over Duke, he elevated them to new heights. Tim Corbin has elevated Vanderbilt baseball to new heights. And it to me, what he's been able to build is remarkable. And what you see is the extent of that building reflected in the current roster. We were going over this last night on the air. You've got guys from all across the country, all regions, Massachusetts, New Jersey, California, all coming to Nashville because they've seen over the last decade the power that has been built in Vanderbilt baseball. It's a remarkable building project that's taken a good chunk of Tim Corbin's adult life, and it's paid off because he's built one of the best baseball programs year in and year out in college baseball. And his name deserves to be up there with some of the very great coaches across sport that have ever coached. He is a fantastic builder, and then once he builds, a sustainer. And that's not easy to do, especially in a league like the SEC where there's so much talent and so many good coaches.
And as far as the evolution of Tim Corbin as a head coach, I mean, you saw what he did in the Stanford game, the elimination game last week, where Vanderbilt is falling apart at the seams and they're able to regroup. A lot of that attributed to him. How much is he basically a psychologist at this point as well as a great ball coach?
Oh, there's no question that a good chunk of what he does is mental with his team. And we had a long conversation with him on Sunday, and we walked through everything that happened. And to have a coach that emphasizes the mental aspect of the game, I think was more important over the last year than at any time perhaps in any coach's tenure at the helm. You're talking about a scenario in which no one had a playbook for. Your season gets canceled a month in. Nobody knows what's going on. Kids can't work out. There's no draft really to speak of. Their futures are all in doubt. They're going to look to one person on that campus for answers. And Tim Corbin, like all of us, who had answers for this scenario? Take yourselves back to April or May of 2020. Who had answers as to what was going on? We're seeing things happen in that time frame that we never thought possible. He had to shepherd a whole group of college students through that time, and to have them come out on the other end and be ready to go for a college baseball season and make a run at another national title. The mental of this game and the mental acumen of the head coach to navigate through that was never challenged more than it was over the last year. And both of these programs came through with flying colors. But what Tim Corbin has done is made that a part of his program over a decade, and it's really paying off.
I tell you what we were doing last April or May, Kevin. We were all thanking God for Tiger King in the content business because it was the only thing that we could watch.
Right.
We could watch communally together and to talk about it like it was sports.
The Last Dance too. Those were our two things: Tiger King and The Last Dance. That's all we had.
Oh, it was an oasis in the desert. Kevin Kugler here with us on 104.5 The Zone. He has done an exceptional job covering the College World Series for a long time. He has done an exceptional job last night on the call for Westwood One of Game 1. He will do the same, I am certain, tonight as Vandy looks to win yet another College World Series and add to their trophy case here in Nashville. Kevin, we appreciate the time as always. Enjoy the rest of the baseball, what remains of it, and thank you for providing the insight. Vandy fans are often neglected, even here locally. So anytime we can give them some love and provide them legitimate conversation about their teams, they're very happy for it.
Well, Vandy fans should be very proud of what they have in Vanderbilt baseball. It's one of the best in the country, and I look forward to covering them again tonight. Thanks for the time.
At Kevin Coogler is where you can follow him. It's so cool when you have somebody that's got, a legitimate connection to the event that they are a part of. Like Lucas was, and I have to give credit where credit is due because that was not my insight that Kevin Coogler was from Nebraska and had grown up basically as a part of the College World Series. That was something Lucas knew because Lucas studies all of these play-by-play people religiously for some reason because, of course, that is what he aspires to be and is a very good play-by-play broadcaster now. But, of course, he aspires to be at the level that Kevin Coogler is on. So that was good insight from Lucas in our pre-show meeting and something that we were glad that we could let Kevin kind of express his emotional tie to this game as well, which I think really contributes to what his broadcast sounds like because he cares about the event that he's calling as much as the people who are participating in the event or the people who are listening to hear their teams participating in the event. It's a really cool layer to all of this stuff. We will continue to have this conversation about Vandy and Mississippi State, what the expectation should be, whether they will be able to get this College World Series win tonight and claim themselves champion. No asterisks unless you're a Vols fan. We'll do all that and more as well as your calls. 615-737-1045, 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Reising, and this is 104.5 The Zone.
More Titans talk than anyone else. What a catch! Your home for Titans football and the flagship of Titans radio. 104.5 The Zone.
What's new at Two Rivers Ford these days? A lot.
Michael Otto on YouTube. Now, Michael means well, and he is having a good-natured conversation with the other people in the chat on Zone TV. But he says, sad that it took the school 3.5 hours away getting eliminated for Nashville Sports Talk Radio to start talking about a team in Nashville. He's, of course, referencing the Vols versus Vanderbilt. By the way, 12:20, our College World Series analyst, Tony Vitello, Vols head coach, joins us. Sorry, Mike. I mean, how are we still at the point where people are complaining about this? Do Vandy fan and Michael's not saying that he's a Vandy fan. Michael's saying he's just a general anti-UT fan. So of course there are biases in this. Lebowski says not enough in-depth sounds coverage. I mean, I could try. You know, we can go and do some reporting, Lucas. You and me will just go get smashed out of the bandbox and see what results via social media. We'll have to get people involved that way. But no, I mean, there's just more Vols fans than there are Vandy fans.
Exponentially more.
Okay, like it's not, I'm just playing the hits, baby. Like how do people not understand how the math works on this by now? There have been plenty of talk show hosts before me. There will be plenty of talk show hosts after me that do this. Schaefer nodding his head vigorously at the after me part. Yeah, I know, bud. That will talk more Vols than they do Vandy because there's just more Vols fans. So, yes, I understand that there may be a little bit of contention and that Michael doesn't like the Vols. And boo-hoo. I'm sorry. We're talking about Vandy in the College World Series. What more do you want from me? 615-737-1045. Let's start with Tim in Dixon who wants to talk about the College World Series. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I moved to Tennessee 35 years ago, and the Vols had a better baseball program back then than Vandy did. And they got all the press. Anyway, that's not what I called about.
Okay.
One of the things that I think is interesting is that I think that the interest in the women's softball College World Series has helped the baseball College World Series and vice versa. I love how they have them timed so that when one of them ends, the other one is picking up. And you basically have a month of college ball to watch as you have the tournaments at year end.
No, Tim, I think that's an exceptional point because the numbers on the softball, the Women's College World Series, thank you for the call, 615-737-1045. The numbers for the softball were way up this year, and that is even after they did the women in the Women's College World Series so wrong by having their championship, the deciding game of their championship series at like 3 p.m. or 2 p.m. Central Time on a Thursday afternoon. That was dumb. But I do think it generated legitimate interest in a way that it carries over, right? So just to run it through my context, my numbers are better when I've got a good lead-in. Fortunately, I've got a good lead-in in J. Martin Ramon, so it benefits me.
Schaefer fist pump.
That's right.
And Tim's calling from Dixon, Tennessee. I used to work there a little bit. A heavy softball town. There is significant softball interest in the South. Dixon County, there's 2 high schools there in Dixon County High School and Creekwood in the state championship conversation every year. There's a lot of significant softball communities in the state. I think a lot more people watch college softball than you might realize.
Well, certainly the numbers told that story based on how the television ratings went. So, yeah, when you got a good lead-in, your sport or your show does better. That is exactly the kind of thing that I think Tim is drawing the connections to where you have a legitimate excitement for college softball and then college baseball, having them concurrently one after the other. 615-737-1045. Chuck is in Nashville. He wants to talk about Vandy, Mississippi State. What's up, Chuck?
Well, I'm a Vols/Vandy fan, and I predicted Vandy would win last night. But to call that total domination on Vandy's point, I think is way over the top. You had one inning there where there was 2 hits batsmen and 3 walks, and they just set the table for Vandy, and Vandy had 2 timely hits, which they haven't had this whole tournament. The home run and the double down the line. Without those things, Mississippi State gave him a lot of help in that inning. That pitcher did. That pitcher was praying before he started. That guy was a nervous wreck when he started.
Oh, sure. And I heard on the broadcast last night that he's the first pitcher in a College World Series to be yanked in the first inning that way. He was shook.
Yes, and in that Stanford game, let's remember the tying run was walked on base, and the winning run was the guy threw the ball 10 feet over the catcher's head where he just had to trot it. Vandy has received some good help. They haven't played really as well as they can play, although I predicted them to win this tournament before it started, and I think they'll win tonight because they're due timely hitting.
Yeah, thank you for the call.
That's all I got to say.
I appreciate the call. Thank you for that context. Because when you run it through that prism, right? Because a lot of people, and you're playing the results as much as anything. When you see the 8-2 final, people are probably, if they didn't watch the entirety of the game, people are probably over the top. And I do think that Vandy put on a championship performance last night. To me, I consider that to be a dominant performance. When you have the ability to, as Kevin Kugler said, stay patient after Mississippi State opens up the scoring with that home run, and you're in a hostile environment, even if it is a neutral site, for them to be able to remain patient, for them to be able to take advantage of the walks that they did get because the pitcher was losing control very, very early on in that first inning, hitting one of Vanderbilt's batters and putting guys on base in a position for Vanderbilt to take advantage of. And Vanderbilt did take advantage of that. So I get why people are nitpicking it, but what we're nitpicking is still as complete a performance. I would argue, Lucas, maybe you've watched more college baseball throughout the course of the regular season than I have. Certainly I watched more Vols in the regular season than I did Vandy because I knew that more people would want to talk about Vols than Vandy during the regular season when it comes to this sport. But I do think that that's as complete a performance as I've seen from Vanderbilt in some time because they did get the timely hits. And that's something that they've lacked really going back through the super regionals and the regionals. The bats have not been there. Yesterday they got them.
Yeah, and that was the opposite in 2019. Like top to bottom, 1 through 9, that order was absolutely ruthless. And that's been the one thing that people have said is lacking a little bit, even throughout Omaha. They've just gotten really good pitching from guys also not named Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker.
Yeah, Evan just jumps in the chat on Twitter, says, "Go Vols." You guys are a trip. 615-737-1045. Let's get Josh in the borough in here. We're going to talk about the Commodores. What's up, Josh?
Yes. Hold on, I'm having trouble.
Okay, you're good.
With Vanderbilt and MTSU, the coronavirus there, in NC State with the coronavirus thing, remember the NFL had a bunch of false positives at the beginning of the season last year and put games off. Do you think it will ever come out if those tests were false positives? And you also test positive for up to 3 months from the coronavirus, even after you're vaccinated.
Right, with the antibody situation. Thank you for the call, Josh. You know, I think I wonder if people have the attention span for it, I guess would be the way that I would look at that. Because you are right. There were false positives in the NFL that caused problems. And if it were to come out that NC State did have false positive COVID tests among the people who did test positive, particularly the idea that they had four vaccinated players test positive for COVID-19. Now, what the entirety of the country and really the world is dealing with right now is the Delta variant, which apparently is more successful at infecting people despite being vaccinated, although the vaccinations are proven to have helped to help against the Delta variant of COVID that is now starting to make the rounds across the United States and originating in India based on the research and reporting that has been done there. But long story short, I don't know. It depends on what people's level of interest is in it, honestly, after the fact, Josh. Because I think that you may see something like that, and to speculate whether they were or were not false positives, I'm not going to do. It's just, it would be reckless on my part. But if there is an interest in seeing the results after the fact, if the College World Series concludes tonight and people are still demanding answers because they got precious little from the NCAA, then I do think there will be people who go back and do the reporting after the fact and would hopefully be able to provide some context, shine some light on a situation that was unfortunate for NC State, although They are only there are 7 other teams, as Alan Bell of CBS Sportsline pointed out on the 615 Sessions, my podcast today. There are 7 teams who are not dealing with this, and NC State was the one who had the situation within their ability to control it with how they approach the vaccination process. They chose not to. I've seen very little accountability from NC State. Rather, people just rushing to their defense when, in sports, it's all about the controllables, right? Mike Vrabel will get at a press conference, tell you control the things that you can control. The things that were eminently controllable for NC State in this is their vaccination process. We're going to pivot coming up next, though, because 2 Titans made the NFL's all under 25 team. We'll tell you who they are coming up next, and we'll get into a conversation about under 25 quarterbacks because there are 2 in particular who come to mind as being the best in that category. All that and more coming up next. I'm Buck Reising, and this is 104.5 The Zone.
One guy has over 10 years of real NFL experience. The other guy just likes to talk sports. J. Mart and Ramon. Jason Martin and Ramon Foster. Tomorrow morning starting at 6 on 104.5 The Zone.
877-1045. Had a lot of fun with the callers so far. Callers always make me happy. I don't know why. I was thinking about this because Lucas was telling me, I don't know if I'm betraying a trust by bringing this to air, what we talk about in the commercial break. But he was telling me that he got a text from a friend in Dixon who was maybe the word that I should use is unenthused about some of the language that I use. And I understand. Sometimes I got to be more cognizant of that. But a lot of times, Lucas, I don't know if people understand that I do this job like nobody's listening, which is
that's the key.
I mean, is it? I don't know. Because it gets me in trouble. I went home to visit my parents over the weekend. That's my annual. I probably make 2 or 3 Evansville trips a year, just because my parents live there. My little sister lives there. She will soon be up at college, so she will. My parents will officially be empty nesters. And I love my family, and I love my family's. I love my family setup out there. But the city that I'm from, I largely detest. And I went on a bit of a rant last week about how I don't have great feelings about the city of Evansville, Indiana. And my stepdad apparently was listening. And, I think I hurt his feelings a little bit when I went home, and he was asking me about it. I had no idea that they listen to what we do for 3 hours a day. I was shocked by that.
I consistently say horrible things about growing up in the state of Alabama. And I had a great childhood, great friends, but, it's Alabama. So I hear a lot of that, too.
Has anybody approached you about the things that you have said on air thus far?
Yeah, when I went home once, a buddy of mine that lives in Nashville was like, come on, man. It's not that bad.
What, in Alabama?
Yeah.
Did you say, have you been? Do you not remember what the state of
Look
Alabama?
Look
around. Just look at it.
No, Birmingham is not a terrible city. If you're going to live anywhere in Alabama, Birmingham is good. But the rest is a hellscape.
615-737-1045. So what we're going to do here is, we haven't talked Titans for some time. Obviously, they are on vacation. The NFL is on vacation. But the season of the list is upon us, and the NFL itself refuses just because their time is technically not that important right now. The NFL is all important for everything that we do. Nobody can move or breathe or say anything without the NFL say so in the sports world. So the NFL is producing their own content at this point. And one of these things is the all under 25 offense and defense that the NFL put out from their Twitter account yesterday. Now, there are 2 Titans on this list. In fact, as I just look it over very quickly, I don't think that there is another team that has 2 players on the offensive all-under-25 team and the defense, the all-under-25 defensive team as well. I believe the Titans, just taking a glance at this, are the only team with 2 such players. Now, I would assume that everybody knows who these 2 players are. One would be Arthur Juan Brown, the other Jeffrey Simmons, Big Jeff. A.J. Brown is among, so I'll run through the all under 25 offensive team first. Quarterback is Lamar Jackson. Jonathan Taylor, running back, Josh Jacobs as well of the Las Vegas Raiders. Your wide receivers are A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, and D.K. Metcalf. D.K. Metcalf, who I believe is a 20-something in the body of a 45-year-old. T.J. Hawkinson, tight end. The offensive line from tackle to tackle and then on to the center. Mekhi Becton, Tristan Wirfs, Mike Onwenu? I don't know how to pronounce his name. I don't know who that is. Damian Lewis and Eric McCoy at center. So A.J. Brown very much belongs among that group of his peers. A.J. Brown, without question, is one of the best wide receivers. I mean, he's probably one of the best wide receivers in the sport right now. I don't know if you want to do like a top 10. I don't know if you want to do like a top 15. Not to get into our own lists, because that is, speaking of hellscapes, that is what I consider to be the hellscape of sports talk radio conversation. Lists are lazy as far as I'm concerned. But I do think that there are things to be discussed on this list in particular, particularly the quarterbacks. Because the list of under 25 quarterbacks is a much more interesting conversation. Patrick Mahomes is 25 years old, so he does not qualify for this particular conversation. Guys like Lamar Jackson, former NFL MVP, Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills, who has taken, probably as good a step. I can't think of another player who has become a better professional quarterback than they were as a college quarterback. I think that was the biggest knock. I don't think it was the biggest knock on Josh Allen coming out of Wyoming, is he was just meh. Statistically, in terms of win-loss percentage, like there wasn't anything. The traits were there. The potential, the upside that we all traffic in was there for Josh Allen. But really, outside of Matt Ryan and Josh Allen, I think, are the only two quarterbacks in recent memory that I can recall that were better pros than they were college players. Also on this list would be Tua, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, technically, for the purposes of this conversation, even though he only started 4 games. Then you look at guys like Sam Darnold, who are also on this list, part of that Josh Allen draft class. Darnold, the only one of these guys. Joe Burrow also qualifies. By the way, Gardner Minshew does as well, but I don't think anybody's going to put him in this conversation. Sam Darnold, the only one of these players currently not on the team that drafted them, because Sam Darnold has already obviously had a change of scenery going from the New York Jets to the Carolina Panthers. So who among those quarterbacks is the best under 25? I don't know that we've seen enough from Joe Burrow, even though I think Joe Burrow has the potential, despite where he plays, despite being in yet another hellscape of Cincinnati, Ohio, the hellscape of the NFL, where nobody wins anything and the organization is largely cheap, but they do draft well, which is why Cincinnati hovers around relevancy even if they can't seem to win a playoff game. Joe Burrow, we have not yet seen a substantive enough sample size. We know what Josh Allen and Lamar, or at least we think we know what Lamar Jackson is. Now, I had a little bit of this conversation on the primetime show last night because, as the big voice person says, I'm the allegedly most successful streaming and podcasting person in all of Nashville, which was news to me until the big voice guy said something, but I'll take the compliment. By the way, new 615 Sessions podcast out today. Subscribe, rate, and review. But with Lamar Jackson, I want to have, and Lucas, maybe we could get a guest. Lucas is locked in on the Euro, so of course, immediately as the soccer came on at 11 o'clock, I've lost him for the rest of the show.
I'm listening.
Okay. Maybe, Lucas, for sometime either this week or next week, we can find somebody to talk about Lamar Jackson choosing to not have an agent in negotiating his potential contract extension with the Baltimore Ravens.
And that was the case when he was drafted as well with his mother.
Correct. His mom was heavily involved, but he went into the draft without an agent. And then people were critical of him when he almost fell out of the first round, the Ravens trading back up into the first round to draft him 32 overall. But Lamar Jackson is the next one of these guys due for a massive payday. Dak Prescott got a massive payday, became one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL coming off of a snapped ankle. So why shouldn't Lamar, as a former NFL MVP, why should he not be able to cash in a way that other quarterbacks have not, because they would not be paying their agent? Now, I don't know how it works with NFL agents. I think that the contracts standard, or the standard agent player agreement, usually about 3% of the contract that the agent negotiates. I don't think it's quite as high. Like my agent gets 10%. my agent gets a pint of blood, basically. So I don't think it's quite that much, but they are also making exponentially more money than me.
Take your toll, troll.
Yeah, no. Listen, this is the best kind of troll. This is the kind of troll that makes you money. So
yeah.
we love that troll. He can take his 10%, and I'll love him either way. But I would say to you that really, I think it narrows it down. If you're not going to include Burrow in this list, it would narrow it down between 3 names. You have the former MVP in Lamar, who has had more success than any of them in this group. Josh Allen, who looks to be on this same trajectory, even though he's really only done it for a year, really played at that kind of a level where coming into the, Bills-Titans games, people were talking about Josh Allen as an MVP candidate. And then the Titans were very quick to remind him that he was not an MVP candidate and beat the Bills by 26 after a 16-day layoff. Why don't we have this conversation on the other side? Who's the best quarterback under 25? Is it Herbert? Is it Lamar? Is it Josh Allen? We'll get into that as well as why I think Ryan Tannehill is the Paul George of the NFL. Spicy. 615-737-1045 is how you chime in. 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Reising. This 1045 The Zone.
Getting you set for Titans training camp. Bam! Your home for Titans football and the flagship of Titans radio. 1045 The Zone.
Score a major
gave you some options for you to choose from. I'm legitimately conflicted. We talked about this in the green room before the show. If you want to weigh in, 615-737-1045. I'll probably make Lucas start the proceedings here in just a second. We're also going to talk about why I believe Ryan Tannehill to be the Paul George of the NFL, which may seem random, but it shouldn't, because if you watched any of the NBA, any sport really, or any of the sports coverage outside of the College World Series, you saw that Paul George had 41 points in a playoff win last night against the Suns, keep their season alive so far. But Paul George is not considered by, we had Brandon Wright on yesterday. Had Brandon Wright on and got his opinion of Paul George, and he said that he spoke on the idea that Paul George is respected around the league, but it's just about the positions that he's been put in to be able to kind of achieve greatness or to be recognized as great. So I saw Diana Rossini pose the question heading on to Get Up this morning as to who is the NFL's Paul George. And to me, my answer was Ryan Tannehill, but we'll get into that here in a second. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. So, Lucas, if I'm giving you the options that we laid out earlier, and if anybody missed those options, it is Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Tua, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, also a part of this conversation. There are a handful of names that are also under 25. Drew Lock is a part of this group, even though Drew Lock, I don't think anybody would list him as the best under 25 quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is 25 years old, so he is excluded, fortunately, from this conversation, because obviously he would be the answer for really any conversation about quarterbacking at this point. Lucas, who are you going with?
I think it's Josh Allen.
Why?
I think part of it is I think he has the best shot to win a Super Bowl out of any of the four on this list. And the best shot to lead a team to a Super Bowl.
Okay, so give me more than that. You know what I'm saying? Like, why do you believe he has – is it because of the team that he plays for? Is it because of his skill set physically? Like, does he elevate players around him?
Yeah, because I think he can make off-schedule throws that guys like Lamar Jackson haven't shown they can really do on a consistent basis.
I don't know if that's true. Lamar can't make off-scheduled throws?
I think Josh Allen can do it better. Josh Allen doesn't have the escapability that Lamar Jackson does, but Josh Allen can escape out of a pocket and hit a receiver on a dime 50 yards down the field in the corner of the end zone.
And he's done that. We saw him do that in a playoff game against the Colts, I believe, is who ended up beating the Colts for them to advance. Yeah, because Phillip Rivers made some terrible decisions at the end of the game that, was fortunate for me, because then I got new arsenals or new weapons in my arsenal for gifts when I need to use the Phillip Rivers face. Allen is the man amongst boys, says Zach Bunch on YouTube. Yeah, if you want to weigh in on the chat, you can do that as well. I see John Nicholson says Lamar isn't a QB. Oh, good. There's one of those. John Nicholson says Lamar ain't a QB. Man stands in the pocket for 2 seconds, then takes off. Lamar's different. I think the definition of quarterback, people look at Josh Allen and say he looks like a quarterback. He plays the position more like a conventional quarterback. Now, there are some, his game does lack certain conventions. He's probably one of the most erratic players in the NFL. The dude is a roller coaster ride. Now, probably the only bad Josh Allen game, though, that we saw from him last year was against the Titans. He had 2 interceptions. He was not terribly accurate. The Titans did not get a pass rush on him as they did really did not against really any quarterback. It was not like anything Tennessee did to pressure him. They did have moments, but it wasn't like Tennessee was doing anything crazy to disrupt Josh Allen in the pocket on that Tuesday night game. Now, they do well in disguise in the secondary. That's something that you consistently hear praise for the Titans defense, even if, people look at the Titans defense and say, why the hell are they giving up 3rd and 17 again until the end of time? 615-737-1045 is how you get involved. So, I think Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is as skilled a rookie quarterback as any we have ever seen, and that's a big part of why Anthony Lynn got fired in Los Angeles. I almost said San Diego. But as the Chargers coach, because they think that there's more Herbert's capable of, and they don't want him held back by somebody who is incompetent, which was largely the criticism of Anthony Lynn in big game or big time situations in game. He was a poor in-game coach. Justin Herbert has a high ceiling, to be certain. Tua, we still don't know. Jalen Hurts, 4 games of 4 starts. Not a big enough sample size for us to be able to include Jalen Hurts as a part of this conversation.
Now, we've heard from Chris in Murfreesboro to let us know Josh Allen actually is 25 years old. He turned 25 in late May, about a month ago.
Oh, so Josh Allen's out of this conversation. So it's Lamar. Lamar Jackson is the best of them. Well, that wastes a whole bunch of time. I thought I looked that up last night. Josh Allen's 25. I'm pissed.
Yeah.
I'm really upset with this. I had this whole
He
spiel.
just turned 25.
Damn it. You got to be kidding me. Well, now I'm really upset because now it's no contest. Now it's Lamar. But then there becomes this conversation. Now, lucky for me, I had a pivot off of this because if not, we would have been screwed. Thank you for pointing that out. Who called in to say that?
Chris from Murfreesboro.
Thank you, Chris in Murfreesboro. Lamar is not a gun. Excuse me. Zach Bunch says on YouTube, Lamar is not a gunslinger, but he is a damn good quarterback. Lamar has had more success than even if we were to include Josh Allen as a part of these proceedings, which we will not because he is 25 years of age as of last month. So I think I'm gonna blame somebody else. I'll pay a fine for this. I'm pretty sure Pro Football Reference hasn't updated Josh Allen's birthday.
Really?
I'm gonna pay that fine.
Yeah, May 21st, he turned 25.
Okay, I will pay the dollar because I'm blaming something. I'm blaming somebody for something that is clearly my fault. But I believe that I was misled by Pro Football Reference, and I'm very upset about that because they're normally spot on.
Hoodwinked.
Bamboozled even. So it's Lamar. Lamar stands alone as the under 25 quarterbacks. Now, Lamar is a part of this draft class with Darnold, with Allen, with Baker Mayfield, where they are getting into the point of their careers where guys are going to have to make decisions on these quarterbacks. And something that I want to get into later this week is why Lamar Jackson should be immediately the highest paid quarterback in football on nothing but market value alone. You could debate the merits of who he is as a player. You could debate his playoff success. All of those are valid criticisms. But if the market, based on Dak Prescott's contract, tells us anything, it's that quarterback is the premium position. And even if you come back from a snapped ankle, you immediately, he's not the highest paid Dak. Mahomes will still be the highest paid probably until the end of time because he's on a $500 million contract. It's just crazy to me. But Lamar should also be vaulted up that list. If you're going to do the salaries for a quarterback the way that we normally do the salaries for a quarterback, even if Lamar conventionally is not what we think of when we think of quarterbacks. He's had more success than any of the rest of those guys in that group. Something we should see if we can't get somebody who is familiar with the contract negotiations. See if we can't get Joe Corey this week, Lucas, former NFL agent now working for CBS Sports, because I think he would have some interesting insights for us to share with the people. Lamar just sucks, says Caleb Reinwright. He beats you in a playoff game. I hate to break it to you. Now, maybe he didn't make it much further outside of into the divisional round, but he beat the Titans, so he can't suck that bad. 615-737-1045. Or maybe the Titans defense just sucked that bad in giving up a 48-yard touchdown run to Lamar.
Titans defense played well in that game.
They were not the problem. Honestly, so this is a good transition to our next conversation about Ryan Tannehill being the Paul George of the NFL. Because I almost said Paul George. I don't think it was Ryan Tannehill's fault, the reason that the offense looked so badly. And the defense, that's probably the best performance that they had all year long.
Oh, 100%.
But I was shocked sitting in the press box at Nissan Stadium. And to watch, because they did give up the 48-yard touchdown run. Lamar's going to get his at some point. Lamar does things on a football field that I haven't seen anybody do. Now, I'll be honest. I never saw Mike Vick. I have seen Mike Vick, but the version of Mike Vick that I remember is the Eagles, not when he was in Atlanta. I don't know, Lucas, if your depth of knowledge in the NFL goes back that far, but the Vic that I remember was the backup to Donovan McNabb and then ultimately ended up taking that position.
Yeah, I vaguely remember him in Atlanta, but yeah, his Pro Bowl time with the Eagles sticks out more just because of our age. Like, I didn't know a whole lot about football when Mike Vick was running around in ATL.
Right. So to do the Atlanta Vic versus Ravens Lamar comparison, we would not be able to do that accurately because there is a knowledge gap there. But what I would say to you is that when it comes to Ryan Tannehill, that playoff loss I put mostly at the feet of Arthur Smith and Mike Vrabel because there was coaching decisions. It was a game plan. Arthur Smith had been, he deserves all of the success that he's had. He was and is one of the best offensive minds in the sport. And he had a bad game in a playoff game. It's unfortunate if you're a Titans fan.
And Corey Davis spent a good chunk of that game helmet off on the sideline.
Sure. At critical moments at the end of that game, Corey Davis had his helmet off, which is something that Titans fans will continue to cite as a part of all their ills. And now they have Julio Jones, so it's only going to get better, we think. But Julio! That was delayed enough to where I think you should pay a fine for that.
It was delayed.
At that point, you're just disrupting things. This is why you can't watch soccer while we're doing the show. Pay attention.
Oh, it's almost halftime.
That doesn't help me. 615-737-1045. Useless. So when it comes to what started this conversation is Diana Rossini tweeted out this morning. Can't wait to discuss this on Get Up ESPN because Paul George and the Clippers won a game last night against the Suns in their playoff series. So Diana on ESPN this morning. Who is the NFL's Paul George, the player who needs to win something to be considered great? And immediately, Ryan Tannehill popped into my mind because Tannehill is great. He has been great here in Tennessee, a 2-year sample size where he has been among one of the top players in the sport. But what I would say is that his playoff record at 2-2 in the postseason, it's entirely in Tennessee because when the year that the Dolphins made the playoffs, Matt Moore had to start the playoff game, and Matt Moore got summarily dismantled by Ramon Foster's Pittsburgh Steelers. In fact, I think Bud Dupree, I can't remember if it was Bud Dupree or James Harrison who just absolutely, it looked like a murder on the field, what happened to Matt Moore during that game. But Tannehill, in order for the general NFL population to consider him great, I think we all look at him, see his statistical success, see the win-loss record under Tannehill as a Titan and say, this player is great. I think you would be accurate in saying that. But for people to recognize him on a larger scale, he has to win something to be great, whether that's an AFC. Now, he's won a division. Is he capable of winning the AFC? Is he capable of representing the AFC in a Super Bowl? Is he capable of winning a Super Bowl? I would answer yes to all of those questions. But it's how we do the analysis in sports, right? You can't do it until you've done it. Paul George of the NFL, it's either Ryan Tannehill or Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford, who has been to the playoffs, who is a statistical leader among many passing categories and will be the NFL's record holder by the end of his career, given the way that the NFL has changed and Matt Stafford has been on the forefront of the evolution of the passing game. Matt Stafford has been to the postseason and never won a playoff game. 615-737-1045. Darrington is in Nashville. He wants to talk about the Paul George of the NFL. What's up?
I can't believe you. I wouldn't even call him pandemic P of the NFL. First of all.
But wait, Darrington, he was playoff P last night. He wasn't pandemic P last night. He was playoff P last night.
Ryan Tannehill is pandemic P. Like, he's not even a natural quarterback. He was a wide receiver. He had a year and a half of being good based off the weapons around him. I've been in Nashville 34 years. All the quarterbacks them came through here. No. If Ryan Tannehill could go through progressions better, maybe then they would have more trust in him. If he could read defenses better, maybe they would have more trust in him. I don't believe he's a good quarterback. I believe that his accomplishment is based off the running game, Adrian and Corey Davis, and foregone Jonnu Smith, the talent that was around him, what he was. You take that away. If Derrick Henry gets hurt, what do we have? A Matt Schaub at quarterback that can run a little bit?
Oh, Darrington, you are so far off, man. We need some Bruce Drennan. Darrington, man, I can't with that.
I followed him from when he came in the league from Miami. If you look, his numbers are over a hype. It's just good. Okay, when Brady tore his ACL in New England and the quarterback came in and took over, he had a great statistical year because of the system and the players around him.
Matt Castle.
Look at what Hill is now.
Listen, you had all of these things except for Julio Jones. And I appreciate the call, Darrington. Do we have Bruce?
That proves what an ignoramus you are. Get off our show.
He said that Ryan Tannehill is Matt Schaub. Buddy, you are so wrong.
Since the start of the 2019 season, Tannehill first in yards per attempt, 8.55, first in game-winning drives with 9, tied for first in fourth quarter comebacks with 7, second in passer rating, second in TD percentage, and the Titans offense is first in touchdowns, 50-yard plays, and red zone touchdown percentage since 2019.
Courtesy of?
Jeff Kerr of CBS.
You had all of the toys that Ryan Tannehill has right now when your quarterback was Marcus Mariota. What good did it do you? What was Derrick Henry before Marcus Mariota was benched? What was he in that 2019 season? He was fine. He's a good player. He was on the trading block a year before that. They did not know what they could do with all of the toys that they had provided Marcus Mariota. So they had to have Ryan Tannehill salvage the whole damn thing. Darrington. Listen, I have a great amount of respect for all of our callers. All opinions are welcome here. But there are some.
Anytime you say that, it's like the kiss of death to a caller.
That's right. Because that was so face-meltingly stupid what that man just brought to these Nashville airwaves that I cannot even wrap my head around it. You can dismiss Ryan Tannehill on a great many levels, and I will be the first to do so. I think that I am rational about what Ryan Tannehill is. I think that he is efficient. I think that he does not physically overwhelm you, but I think that he executes the offense, at least he has under Arthur Smith, to almost perfection, near perfection, so much so that, as Lucas cited, courtesy of CBS Sports, he leads the damn NFL in almost every passing category, every scoring category, every statistical thing that you could want your offense to do. Darrington, he just presided over, you said you've lived in Nashville for 34 years, so you've seen all of the years of the Tennessee Titans here in Nashville, some in Memphis, and even before then as the Houston Oilers prior to them coming to this city. This man, who you have just compared to Matt bleeping Schaub, is the best, just presided over the best offense in the history of the Titans. 40 touchdowns, 33 passing, 7 on the ground. Does it help that he has all of these things available to him? A great offensive line, a Pro Bowl or all-pro caliber running back, a star wide receiver in A.J. Brown, and not a bad second option in Corey Davis. Of course it does. But you had all of those things at the start of 2019. And what I saw at the start of 2019 was a quarterback get benched in a 16-0 horrific loss to Joe Flacco and the Denver Broncos because he couldn't use any of the things that they had provided Marcus Mariota. Tannehill saved this damn thing. So even as I am saying that he needs to win something legitimate, a division is legitimate. How they continue to build upon that success is entirely upon him. And he, by the way, will have a great deal of pressure on himself because he has been provided not only more toys in Julio Jones, but a different offensive coordinator. And Tannehill, the task of the quarterback is to help elevate the players around him. People will be critical of Tannehill if he does not do that in this year where they've clearly pushed all of their chips in on the table. Ryan Tannehill saved this window for the Tennessee Titans. And you ought to be damn grateful for that, Darrington, instead of calling him Matt Schaub. I'm offended. 615-737-1045. You know what we say here in Nashville and almost 6 years here in Nashville, so I know this to be so. You know what we say to people like Darren, it was Darrington, not Darrington Evans, But Darren.
That was not Darrington Evans. I
Darren-
hope it was not Darrington Evans.
Can you imagine? That would honestly be great theater if we just had no idea. The second string running back is calling in to rip the quarterback.
No, it was not him.
That would be delightful. What I would say to you is bless your heart, because that's all we could say.
Have a late lunch with Blaine and Mickey.
No, but people eat beef tongue. That's a thing. Lucas nodding.
Yes.
I just can't imagine the cow going, like trying to move with no tongue.
That's a cow. That's a big tongue.
Oh, yeah, it's a big tongue.
Blaine this afternoon, 1 to 3 on 104.5 The Zone.
Comparison of Ryan Tannehill to Matt Bleeping Schaub. I would agree. I'm a little hot about it. I think that is one of the dumbest things that I've ever heard. Now, Darrington has said that he is both a Marcus Mariota fan and a Seahawks fan, and contends in the comments on Facebook that the coaching staff screwed Marcus. A.J. Brown was not consistent, and at the time, Jonnu was benched due to lack of performance. None of that is true. That is all. Well, actually, I think that, Marcus failed performance-wise, but the malarkey coaching regime also did not do him any favors.
Oh, it certainly affected him, but that doesn't change the fact that he could hardly throw the ball downfield in early 2019.
Right. The nerve issues. And about, A.J. Brown not being consistent, maybe I'll accept that. And at the time, Jonnu was benched for lack of performance is just blatantly not factually accurate.
But to just ignore the uptick in production the moment Tannehill stepped in, you can't just ignore that and say that none of it was attributed to Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, it's really dumb. You don't know what you're watching at that point. 615-737-1045. People have called in. They're agitated. They're aggravated. They're all of it. Nick is in Dixon, wants to start us off. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so I got a couple of buddies at work that do it the same way. They, that they won't believe that Ryan Tannehill's great. It's all, without Derrick Henry, he's nothing. And honest, that's football. There's 11 guys on the field at a time. That's just part of the game. And, you look at the other quarterbacks around the league, Mahomes, Brady, and of course they're great, but look at the offenses they're on too. It's not like they got a bunch of chumps out there that they're throwing the ball around to. And they get all the credit for being great, but nobody wants to throw any credit Ryan Tannehill's way for what he's getting accomplished.
No, I think it's spot on. And there will always be this division. I thought less so because Mariota was polarizing. It's why I'm almost a little upset that he's gone, because there was always people who had opinions about Marcus Mariota, whether you loved him, whether you hated him, whether you couldn't stand to see him out there on the field anymore, or whether you wish that the coaching staff would have continued to try and salvage what was at the time and still appears to be a quarterback who's a bit broken and who was at the time a lot broken. So there will always be those divisions because Marcus had and rightfully, right, Marcus earned the love of people here in Nashville. There is even if they did not have this level of success with Marcus Mariota as their quarterback, he was an essential part of the transition from literally the Titans coming from the basement of the NFL, from being the worst team in football to where they find themselves now, legitimate contenders year in and year out. So you want to give him credit where credit is absolutely due. But there's no question that Tannehill is the superior player. All of the things that Marcus Mariota was incapable of doing, Ryan Tannehill has done, and you see how your offense has flourished as a result. One of the best in football, top 3. And statistically, the best when it comes to scoring. They outscored. Do you know the Titans outscored the Kansas City Chiefs last year? Just on principle. That is not something that people talk about at all. This I fact-checked, unlike Josh Allen being 25. That I made sure I was right on. But it's because nothing happens without the quarterback. I don't understand why people don't get that still 2 years into the Tannehill experience. 615-737-1045. Steve is in Nashville. He wants to talk about Tannehill. What's up, Steve?
Hey, Buck, how you doing, brother?
I'm great.
Hey, one quick thing. When we bought Tannehill in, I said he's going to end up being a starter because I knew he would at least give us a chance. He could throw the ball downfield. Play action would become real. But there's a funny story. I know you know who Brent Grimes was.
I do.
Brent Grimes is the Miami cornerback. Well, his wife, Miko Grimes, she's really outspoken. I like Miko a lot. And this is a funny story, and she was not high on Tannehill. But she said, do you know why Miami likes Tannehill? She said because he has the ability to roll all the way to the left and throw the ball all the way back across the field. And 2 years ago, I think it was in the playoffs, we were in the red zone, and he rolled all the way to his right. And when he turned, I said touchdown. He threw the ball all the way back to his left. I think it was in the end zone to A.J. Brown for a touchdown. And I was like, Tannehill gives us a chance to throw that ball down the field and make Derrick Henry more effective because Derrick Henry's a beast. Thanks, Buck. I'll let you go.
Hey, thanks, Steve. I appreciate the call. 615-737-1045. 1045. Man, I remember the summer of Miko Grimes. She was out there on social media. Nobody was safe. That was, I think Brent Grimes got in trouble a couple times because of that. Now I think Brent Grimes has been out of the league for a couple of years now, but Miko Grimes was the NFL's great truth teller there for a while. In fact, I think Bleacher Report wrote an article about that to some effect. But yeah, there is no question. There is no question. And this goes back to something that really wasn't talked about that much. But the idea that the coaching staff in training camp that year, the 2019 season, the coaching staff favored Tannehill, but the decision was made to let Marcus Mariota try and play this thing out. That came from above the coaching staff. That came from the front office. There was a legitimate, and this is when Mike Vrabel talks about, what do you want to call it? Disagreements within the building. Going back to this too many cooks in the kitchen idea that we spoke to him about a couple of weeks ago with him and Shane Bowen and Jim Schwartz. And him saying, I'm paraphrasing here, but that they're going to have arguments internally. The process, though, is how they manage those arguments, find common ground, find a unified message, and proceed forward together. That conversation and those disagreements were had about Marcus Mariota and Ryan Tannehill during 2019 training camp. And ultimately, the decision was made to move forward with Marcus Mariota as the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans until such time as he could no longer execute those responsibilities, which just happened to be week 6 in Denver. So this was something that the coaches were on to earlier than it seemed the rest of us were. Because remember, Diana got a bunch of heat. Diana Rossini got a bunch of heat about saying that there was a quarterback competition in Tennessee.
That was the conversation leading into that season.
People lost their damn minds because John Robinson had come out at a press conference and said, Marcus Mariota is the starting quarterback of this team. Ryan has been made aware of the situation. Again, paraphrasing. But that was the message that they were delivering. The coaches knew this was going to be the right decision long before Marcus Mariota ended up getting benched. If they knew all the way back in 2019 and people like Darrington are still having this conversation in 2021, I can't help those people. 615-737-1045 is how you jump into the conversation. Coming up next, we're going to talk about a fantastic event that is coming to the city of Nashville in 2022, coming to Nissan Stadium, in fact. But it's not the Titans. We'll tell you more about what the NHL is doing in Music City on the other side. And Vols coach Tony Vitello will join us as our College World Series analyst. All that and more up next. I'm Buck Reising, and this is 104.5 The Zone.
So, chatting Titans? Well, it's our favorite pastime. Your home for Titans football and the flagship of Titans radio. 104.5 The Zone.
And we'll get into that coming up next. But you said that yesterday was as exciting a day of soccer as any you'd consumed.
Yes, in my life, unquestionably. I mean, 18 goals across 2 games. I mean, absolute thrillers, end-to-end action the whole way, and a tournament favorite getting knocked off by Switzerland. It was one of the best days of this sport that I love that I can remember.
I don't know what I was writing yesterday about Dylan Radins for A to Z Sports Nashville.com, so I don't think I was paying as close attention to the soccer as I would have liked to.
I was annoying 3HL in here during the penalty shootout while they were on air.
Oh, you're Will Bowling of soccer?
Yeah, I was Will Bowling it, but I had to. It went to penalty shootout, first shootout of this tournament. I wanted France to go down so badly. And yeah, it was one of those days that make you sit back and for the soccer's boring crowd, make it hard for it to say that.
I'm sorry, you had to? Nobody held a gun to your head and said you have to come in here and annoy 3HL while the soccer is on.
I got to watch it with someone.
Why?
Like, Will and I were watching in the green room.
Go in the green room then with Will.
And he left to play golf, so I was in there watching by myself.
Wait,
and I heard,
Will plays golf?
He does now. He just discovered it like last week.
He can't be.
Or he didn't he knew what golf was before, but he played his first round ever last week.
I digress.
But no, I don't know. I wanted to watch it with someone. I heard Brent and Don talking about it, and then came into the control room. They were like, "Yeah, come on in, turn on the TV."
Well, Dawn and Brent are much more inviting people than I am.
Oh yeah, it's a very laid. I love coming in 3HL. Very laid back atmosphere in the studio.
As opposed to this?
No, this is a laid back atmosphere as well. But because we're part of the show. But like when Will Bowling walks in here, he's got to brace himself for whatever bullet he's about to catch.
He's the worst. He's discernibly the worst. Anytime Day Braves baseball is on.
Yeah, there haven't been a lot of day games recently.
Fortunately for us.
Yeah, a lot of 6:20 type first pitches.
I got a job to do. 615-737-1045. Lebowski says, wow, Lucas, the truth comes out. Yeah, Lucas clearly enjoys his time when he's not working with 3HL more than he enjoys time with me. It hurts. What am I going to do?
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? I bought a new TV. That's all I've watched. Nothing in 4K, nothing in 8K. All I've done is rewatch The Sopranos in what little spare time I have right now.
I've annoyed my girlfriend incessantly by saying that with every situation.
It's for you, Dell.
What are you going to do?
I'll just yell down the hallway at Dara. Dara, the Schvoyadell. Anyway, this is stupid. The 2022 Stadium Series. It's coming to Nashville. It's going to be Preds and the Lightning in February. So as Rhett Bryan put it, Rhett Bryan, the great one of Titans Radio, who will be in here with us on Thursday, said after the Titans win the Super Bowl and have their parade, they can trot out the hockey team to celebrate in Nissan Stadium as well. But, of course, this is exciting. And the Preds made the announcement yesterday on their social media account, the one that I have great disdain for, but not with this because this is exciting. Outdoor hockey in Nashville. So the Stadium Series for the casual fan, I think, has always been a bit of a fascination. It's always on national television. The Preds' last appearance was not that long ago. They played Dallas. They played the Dallas Stars in the Cotton Bowl, and they lost 4-2 and got Peter Laviolette fired. So maybe not quite that same experience to look forward to in 2022.
Got great jerseys out of it.
They did, and they looked great as they were getting embarrassed on a national stage and getting their coach fired. But it is spectacular. So I guess, Lucas, what was your initial thought when you saw this? Because you're obviously very invested in this. I'm going to go. Like, if this is something that's happening, this will not conflict with my football schedule. So I'm going to go to this thing. I'm very much looking forward to seeing the kind of environment that Nissan Stadium puts on. 615-737-1045 is how you get involved. What is your level of excitement for the Stadium Series in the NHL coming to Nissan Stadium? Outdoor hockey in the Music City, just off Lower Broad. I guess I want to determine just what this means for the franchise itself, because they've played on national television before. This is not a new experience. This is not something that even the Stadium Series is not a new experience for the Preds. But the impact of this, of the ability for Nashville to host this, I think has an effect on how the franchise is viewed, how depending on what the result of the game is, of course. They can't get drummed by the Tampa Bay Lightning, who, by the way, it sounds like are cheating in the NHL playoffs right now with the way Lucas was explaining to me the Nikita Kucherov situation, how this dude was just basically benched for the entirety of the regular season. He's their best player, and then he starts the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's his first action of the regular season, and he doesn't apply against their cap. I saw a player complaining yesterday about them being basically $18 million over the cap with the way that they've stashed Nikita Kucherov until the playoffs. It's an incredible loophole that the NHL has provided. But anyway, Lucas, what is the impact of this on the Preds? Help me understand.
I mean, it's a high profile. Anytime there is an outdoor hockey game being played, the Winter Classic draws a ton of ratings. And even last year in Lake Tahoe, they had to delay it because the sun was literally melting the ice. But it's a spectacle. Everybody loves to see that. I don't know how much it'll attract in Nissan Stadium, but it's Nashville. So I imagine it's going to do ratings. It's the Tampa Bay Lightning, who I think are about to be the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions.
Because they cheat.
Well, it's not cheating if it's legal. But, yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it. There's something about outdoor hockey that if you're a hockey person, it just kind of gives you goosebumps. And the fact that it's coming to Nissan Stadium is great, and it's great for the Titans.
615-737-1045. Let's go to Steve in Franklin, who wants to weigh in. What's up, Steve?
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing?
What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? Your mother passes away. What are you gonna do?
That's exactly. How do you know? When my mother passed away, everybody said, "Stevie, how you doing?" And then they said, "What are you gonna do?" And that says it all. How you doing? What are you gonna do? And also, it was Carmella at Johnny Sack's daughter's wedding when she yelled over to Tony, "Hey, Tone, the rolling team."
The rolling team.
Where are you from, Steve?
I'm from Elizabeth, where The Sopranos was conceived.
Oh, you're kidding.
Right next to, oh, no, I know all of that. The butcher was my butcher, trust me.
What is it? Sartor? I can't remember the name of the butcher.
It was something else.
Satriali's?
Satriali's, yeah, that's right.
Well, Satriali's played the part, but it was Sacco's. It's a long story. When we get together, I'll let you know.
Okay, we'll do that.
And I bet you never had a Sfogliadelle. Did you ever Sfogliadelle?
Yeah, I used to live in New York and New Jersey. I've had Sfogliadelle.
You can't. Oh, I like the way you say that. Not like a Metagon. I like that. You can't explain Sfogliadelle to all these Metagons here. You can't explain it.
You can't do it. You can't do it.
Yeah, I love your show, man. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Steve, real quick, what are the Italians going to do against Belgium on Friday?
Forget about it.
Yes.
That's excellent. That's not the analysis Lucas was looking for, but that's the perfect way to end this. Steve in Elizabeth, New Jersey. We get people from all over the place. 615-737-1045. Fortunately, we don't have to go all the way to New Jersey to get our next guest. We don't actually. Where is Tony Vitello? He's out recruiting right now, isn't he?
Yeah, we'll ask him. He's on the road. He's at some tournaments recruiting, but I know he is paying heavy attention to the goings-on in Omaha.
So he will be our College World Series analyst. The head coach of the Vols joins us coming up next.
The 3HL. Here's what you missed.
Oh, he's taking his shirt off. He's taking his shirt off.
Oh my gosh.
I really thought you were going to throw the boom boom shirt.
Oh my gosh, he has a white tank top on.
Let's go!
The 3HL with Brent Doherty, Don Davenport, and Ron Slay. This afternoon starting at 3, 104.5 The Zone.
One of the most important decisions you'll ever make is who to trust when it's time to sell your home. Hey, this is Dawn Davenport from 3HL, and whether you need to upsize, downsize, or just want to take advantage of this red-hot market, Mark Spain Real Estate is the most trusted real estate team in the U.S. They've earned over 5,000 five-star reviews, and their guaranteed offer makes selling your home easy and stress-free. No showings, no open houses, no stress. Don't worry about the hassle of constant cleaning and making costly repairs. Mark Spain Real Estate has been in the business for over 25 years and has served over 25,000 families. They know what matters most. A quick sale, maximum profit. Sell your home hassle-free with the strongest cash offer in the industry. One of their clients, Joshua, got a guaranteed offer and said, "We skipped the showings and repairs and had an all-cash offer for more than we expected and sold our home in less than a month." Find out what Mark Spain's guaranteed offer would be on your home. No obligation. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer on your home today. markspain.com and start packing, or call 855-299-SOLD.
Step up to the plate and get the best lines in baseball with William Hill Sportsbook. When you play with our money lines, you win more when you're right. So sign up today and start betting risk-free. Download the William Hill mobile app and your first bet of up to $500 is risk-free using promo code RadioRF. New users only. Must be 21 years or older and present in Tennessee to bet. Paid and free bets. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call or text the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. William Hill Sportsbook. Let's make it interesting.
Attention Nashville and surrounding area. Beretta USA at Gallatin is hiring now. The air-conditioned facility has full-time openings for all shifts, and part-time positions are available too. Beretta USA offers tuition reimbursement, employee discounts on Beretta merchandise, and opportunity for career advancement. Log on to Beretta.com. That's Beretta.com, and be on your way to a challenging new career. Come be a part of the Beretta team in Gallatin.
Coverage of the College World Series right here on 104.5 The Zone. Game 2 at 6 p.m. Central Time tonight. I think that when you're looking at how State will hold up against Vanderbilt in this particular matchup, you know that they did not have to go to their bullpen last night. They were basically, it was basically a lost cause for State to do that. So they will have that in their arsenal tonight against Vandy. The question, though, is, and we'll ask Tony Vitello about this, our College World Series analyst for the day, head coach of the Vols, will join us momentarily. I think the question becomes, Lucas, would you start Kumar Rocker tonight? Would you just go for it?
I think they'd save him for Game 3.
You think that's a break glass in case of emergency situation?
I think so.
I don't know.
Pulling out a fully rested Kumar Rocker for a potential game-clinching national championship matchup. Yeah, I think I would wait for day 3.
Think you would wait for day 3?
Let's see what Tony would do.
Okay, let's go to Tony Vitello, who's out on the road recruiting, head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers. Coach, what's going on, brother?
Oh, not much. I appreciate you guys having me on, but analyst usually means you're an expert, and your Omaha or College World Series analyst was 0-2 this year, so I can tell you my opinion, but I don't know that it's an expert one.
Listen, it's far more expertise than we deserve around here. We appreciate you being willing to have some fun with us. And listen, yeah. I mean, it is an achievement. I know that there are, this is not a participation trophy situation, but an achievement unto itself, Coach, just to make it to the College World Series despite going 0-2.
Well, thank you. And it's also a lifelong memory for our kids, but also a lot of Vol fans, like some that had been in the Coach Delmonico era and they got to go back. And then there were several people that would come up to me and said that they always wanted to go, but they never had a reason. But they're Vol fans, so they went. That's the short end of it. There's a lot of stuff, and I don't mean to jump around, but you guys were talking about Kumar. I think as a hitter, you don't want to get caught in between. Like if you're either sitting on a fastball or sitting on a breaking ball, or it might be a different situation, but I don't think you want to get caught in between. So a lot of it probably has to do with how he feels. Rested Kumar in Game 3, you might not be throwing your best bullet in Game 2, but also if you speed him up to Game 2, maybe you're not getting a fully rested or full strength Kumar. So it'll be interesting to decide what they do, but Mississippi State's got a rested bullpen, but the driver's seat is for Vanderbilt being up 1-0 and just need to win one more game.
Yeah, and really, really doing it in fairly easy. I don't want to say easy stride because, of course, these are very competitive teams trying to make sure that they can achieve their championship goals. But certainly, Vandy put it on him in that first inning last night, Coach, and to be able to get the Mississippi State pitcher pulled for the first time in a College World Series final series after the first inning, I thought was insane to watch how that played out.
Ironically, one of the first games I ever watched as a Tennessee employee was at Vanderbilt's field at a summer tournament. Christian McLeod was pitching, and he was originally committed to Alabama, and we thought we were going to get him, and then Mississippi State interjected, and the kid's been great for them since he's been there. It's just something happened along the way this year where he just kind of faded. Maybe he's tired, who knows, but we got to him pretty good in Hoover, and it just hasn't been as electric as it was at times when he was their original Friday starter.
Right. You saw this team in the SEC tournament in Hoover, as you mentioned, and you run-ruled Mississippi State during that game. What was your team able to exploit? Was it the pitching at that point, or what did you guys see that you were able to take advantage of in order to advance past them?
Chad Dallas, our number one, did his normal thing. We were fortunate enough to have our number one as the day, McLeod. But Chad did his normal thing. He got hit a little bit, but he competes. He gets tougher when guys are on base. So he limited the damage they did. And on the flip side, our offense got to McLeod. And then because it was a tournament, they went to Bednar and Sims, their best two guys. And our guys were able to kind of get to that fastball where those two guys kind of have that lighter-esque fastball where it's got a little extra carry to it. Almost seems like rise if you're watching on TV. And for whatever reason, our guys were able to get to it. We really struggled with that type of fastball early in the year. And about the time we faced lighter is when we finally started to make some adjustments and get to that fastball that's got extra ride to it. And it's a lot easier said than done or coached. But you're going to have to do that against the remaining Mississippi State arms, including all those bullpen guys.
Tony Vitello, head coach of the Vols, here with us on 104.5 The Zone. By the way, Coach, I should have brought this up. I declared myself a Vols fan prior to you guys going to Omaha. I even bought the Villains T-shirt, and then you guys went 0-2. So you can blame me if you want.
No, it's all good. We're playing the long game, so keep your gear you bought, and just put the pressure on us to continue to make progress over in Knoxville, and we'll both be happy.
Coach, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State played a 3-game series the regular season. Vandy took it 2 games out of 3 in Nashville. Now in Omaha, the national championship series. Do you wipe that slate clean as a head coach, or do you really go back to those matchups and try to pull some things?
I think you go back and you look for extremes. So if there was a guy who, struck out 3 times in a row against a certain pitcher, he's probably not seeing that pitcher very well. But if you're talking about, pinch hitting a guy just because he took one good swing, off a pitcher or something that was maybe a blip on the radar screen, I don't know that you're going to draw as much from that information. It's so detailed what scouting info we can get now, but at the same time, this is not the big leagues. These kids are young. They're fairly erratic in their emotions and their performance. And also there's just not the same sample size there is at the big league level. So you got to take what you got and use probably, and I don't mean to speak for those 2 coaches are better and smarter than I am, but you got to probably look at the things that really stand out. And then everything else happened earlier in the year, different time, different venue, and you probably got to put a little bit of it in your back pocket.
Tony Vitello here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Coach, timely hitting has not been something that Vandy's had up until that point last night where they got it and it paid dividends for them. What is Vanderbilt capable of at this level heading into this game 2 tonight?
Yeah, you got a streaky lineup at times, it seems, in there, which has not been Vandy's MO. It's been kind of more consistency and, a balance of speed and some other things in there, and then they've relied on the big arms a lot. But this year's team seems to get a little clicky on offense, and when it goes really good. Having said that, they are still capable. When you talk about Enrique as a pest, if he can get on base, it's a nightmare. And then I really feel like Young, I don't know who I'm sliding here with this, but I think he's the most well-rounded shortstop in the league, and he's incredibly dangerous, not just at the start of the game, but he kind of seems to have a little knack, a little David Ortiz-esque stuff in there where when it matters most, you really fear seeing him at the plate. I know Arizona walked him intentionally in that type of situation in the first game of this deal. So a lot of times in big games, you got to look to your best players, and the rest of the lineup could get shut out. But those 2 guys who are hitting near each other in the lineup could put a couple things together, and it could mean the difference. Because you guys know the park plays big a lot of times, and if you're a pitcher still playing college baseball at this point, you're probably pretty good.
Yeah, one would imagine that. I think that's a fair assessment. Good analysis from our guest, Tony Vitello, our College World Series analyst, heading into game 2 tonight. So what analysts have to do, Coach, is make a prediction. Are you prepared to make your game 2 prediction? Are you capable of doing this, slights or not?
I am, but anytime, unless it's coming from Vegas, where the true Italians are setting the line,
Yes.
You got to take it with a grain of salt. I'm in the East Division, and I like when SEC teams have success, but I'm going to hope Mississippi State punches back, and it's kind of their style. It's kind of a loud personality group. They're gritty, and maybe they draw something a little bit from getting, not embarrassed, but it just no one wants to be on that side of the deal in game 1 of this thing. And maybe they draw a little extra from that, and they're confident in the pen being rested, and they even the thing up. And I think they're 2 very even teams as well. So I do think there will be a game 3, and that's great for television and great for college baseball.
It's great for us as fans who are just trying to consume more of it. The state of college baseball in the state of Tennessee has been spectacular, in part due to Tony Vitello and the Vols throughout the course of this season, and Tim Corbin and Vanderbilt as well. I would love to see more college baseball and a game 3, so I can see Kumar Rocker one way or the other, because that guy is a true treat to be able to watch on the mound. Coach, I got to ask you one newsworthy question before I let you get out of here and keep going with recruiting. You ready?
Yeah, bring it on.
All right, where are you at in the process of determining your future at Tennessee? Every Vols fan Was very, very excited to see that LSU named a head coach already.
Yeah, I think Vegas would have predicted that one pretty easily. That was the question, and I appreciate the interest and that's been a question that's been asked a lot or talked about. And all it really means is that our staff has done, enough to kind of spark some of these conversations. And the big thing for us right now is to improve our stadium as best as possible. And so a lot of our conversations revolve around that. I would say by now fans kind of are like, well, what's going on timing wise? In all honesty, there's a lot of things that popped up during the season, and our coaching staff just made a decision as a group. We're not talking about this with each other. We're not talking about anything with anyone else. We owe it to these kids to try and win as many games as possible. And if you look at the calendar, it was, a week ago to this date that we were playing. And then since then, we had to do exit meetings with our players. The draft is coming up. There's a lot going on. So that's an important piece, and we want it to work out right. And trust me, we all are very loyal to Tennessee. Hopefully our work ethic shows that. But it's one of several things that are adding to the summer drama, and we can't wait to be on the other side of it.
I'm telling you, that was exceptionally diplomatic and also insightful. Tony Vitello, the head coach.
Might have a future in this thing.
I was about to say, you may. I mean, listen, Tony, I don't know if we can keep having you on. You may take our place one day.
Yeah, that's what Tennessee fans got to be worried about.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a big time fantasy of at least calling one baseball game from a booth, radio or TV, because I would love to take shots at people or second guess people.
Yes,
that game can speed up on it. The game can speed up on you when you're in the dugout and you're emotional. And but no, you guys definitely do a great job, and I love being on. And yeah, I believe it or not, I did get a degree. I don't want to mention the other SEC school it was, but I did get a degree, so I guess I try.
Coach, we appreciate the time. Enjoy your recruiting trips and enjoy the rest of your summer. And we look forward to seeing some resolution one way or the other. We'll be watching.
Yes, we love All Nation, and we appreciate what they did, and hope all college baseball fans enjoy the finish of this deal. And then next year, we'll all start with an even slate, see where we end up.
No question about it. Tony Vitello, kind enough to give us some of his time here on 104.5 The Zone. How about that? Vols head coach, our College World Series analyst. How pissed are the Vandy fans?
It was great analysis.
Oh, I thought he did a great job. Listen, he is uncommonly comfortable in these settings.
Yeah.
And I think baseball coaches kind of lend themselves to that. Tim Corbin is, I think, what's the word that I want to use? It's not that he's less willing to talk that way. It's just they're different personalities, Vitello and Corbin. But they're both, to talk to them about baseball, they want to talk about baseball. And so I thought that was excellent job getting him, by the way, Lucas. I thought that would be a cool way for us to talk about the College World Series, to have one of the participants as this show's analyst. So we will see.
He told me off the air on the phone, he's been running around like crazy since the moment Tennessee lost to Texas. Recruiting trips, travel ball, draft a little bit later than it typically is. So his schedule has not lightened up much at all. And then throw in contract talks and stadium renovations and everything else.
He said he's very much looking forward to being on the other side of the drama, which we need the drama to prolong as long as humanly possible.
He called a shot. Mississippi State punching back.
No, he sure did. He made a prediction. You can't ever get coaches to make a prediction. You imagine if I asked Mike Vrabel if the Titans got bounced from the playoffs, and I said, "Hey, Mike, you want to do 20 minutes on the radio? Maybe we talk a little NFL playoffs."
Chiefs -8. Who you got?
What do you think Vrabel would do to me physically? Because it wouldn't just be a tongue lashing. Like, I think there would be physical recourse.
No, Tony bucks a lot of trends. Like, how many coaches have that response? Like, well, a lot of the talks are revolving around stadium renovations. Coaches don't get specific like that. So it's kind of refreshing to hear.
Yeah. Zach Bunch in the comments on YouTube just screams, he's coming back. We tried. Listen, I was trying to figure out a way to work the newsworthy question into the conversation. But I think the approach, and listen, these are words. All that matters in any industry, no matter what line of work that you're in, whether you're a coach like Vitello, whether you are a talking sports media vulture like I am for a living, nothing matters until pen is put to paper in all manners of life, all walks of different professions. But I do think that you can be comforted, at least, by his commitment to improving the facilities, which he stated there, and how he is handling things for his staff, for the sake of his staff, and for the sake of the kids, because, as he said, they deserve for us to handle this the proper way. It may sound like the most obvious thing in the world, but it does mean something if, in fact, they are genuine with the way that they go about that. And I think that Tony Vitello, again, we only know him from how many times has he been on the radio show? He's been on the radio show 3 times?
3 or 4 at this point.
Yeah, he's always a good guest, and I think that as I mentioned, his transparency, I think, is uncommon among coaches.
Yeah.
Certainly in the business that I work in.
At this point, all indications kind of point to the ball being in Tennessee's court. Both sides have been outspoken about being committed to get something done and making this thing long-term. Just haven't put pen to paper yet. But I think Tennessee fans can rest knowing he will at least be Tennessee's coach for next season.
Wait, when the hell did England score?
I was pointing that to you.
Did I miss that?
It was right at the end of Raheem Sterling punched one in.
You can't do that while I'm See, this
it was right at the end. I was like trying to.
So you're motioning while I'm trying to conduct. While I'm trying to conduct an interview and try and not waste this man's time. You're shouting at me behind the glass.
You were closing out the interview, and I was just sort of casually pointing as you were saying goodbye. But yes, England took the lead. Let's see how they messed it up.
Your job is to keep me on track, not to further distract me. Jesus. All right, we'll see what kind of distractions Lucas Panzica can come up with next, because it's time for the polls.
The biggest topics. Will Bowling hosts the Zone Daily Podcast. Delivered every morning at 5 a.m. on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the entire Zone Podcast Network.
score if you're watching this exceptional soccer tournament that Lucas Panzica is literally jumping up and down. He has just tweeted that he demands English tears after Germany whiffed a wide open breakaway. They had the English goaltender dead to rights, and the German. What's the German player?
Thomas Müller
just missed.
Yeah, a guy who has played in just countless World Cup games, Euro games, Bayern Munich Champions League games. That is not something you expect him to miss, and England's just doubled their lead. I can't believe this.
Harry Kane, man. Harry Kane is like 110 years old at this point.
He's not as old as you would think he is, and he's actually had he's been pretty invisible in this tournament, and that's his first impact there, finding a header right at the 6 to punch it through. And, this is England beating Germany in a knockout tournament, definitely bucks historical trends.
Why are you after English tears?
It's something about British fans because they like to take a lot of pride in the fact that the British invented soccer, so they think they kind of have every right to win every tournament. And England, the national team, is always one of the most talented, but always disappoints. I always find it hilarious. They think they're much better than they are. They're very entitled. They've only won one major tournament ever in their history. And so every year it's, it's coming home, it's coming home. It's not coming home. They're going to choke in the semifinals and penalty shootout in the most heartbreaking way possible. It's going to be very enjoyable. Really, I should be happy about this because Germany, to me, are a far bigger threat to Italy of winning this tournament than England are.
That's all I see on Twitter right now is just people tweeting, is it coming home?
No, it's not.
No.
Spoiler alert.
2-0.
But this is an incredible win.
In the 87th minute.
Harry Kane's 27, by the way.
Harry Kane's younger than me?
Yep.
What? No, wait. I'm 27. What the hell?
Oh, no, wait. You could do it with Josh Allen, but come on.
I'm already. My birthday's in a month, and I'm continually reminding Lucas about it because it's going to be obnoxious how much I'm going to celebrate myself. And so I've been talking about my birthday since March. So in my head, I'm already 28. But no, me and Harry Kane are the same age. All I'm saying is that Harry Kane has longevity. And I mean, English player or soccer players, international soccer players, they come in at like 13 or 14 and you start seeing their names and recognizing them as brands like Pulisic. But that is embarrassing, me completely forgetting my own age.
I once mispronounced my last name on this radio station, so.
It's true. I was here. Let's do some polls. Oh, you weren't ready?
I don't know who you are, but I know what it's time for. A poll update on the Buck Reising Show. Here's a young man with a very particular set of skills. With the final numbers, here's Buck Reising Show correspondent and producer, Lucas Panzica.
Panzica. Thank you, Liam Neeson. By the way, I don't know, Liam Neeson is getting ready to be cast in yet another action movie. I saw something that he put out, not our favorite soundbite from Liam Neeson, where he is just just enraged basically about the idea that he should take a pay cut for equal pay for women actors. No. Yeah, thank you, Liam. Maybe we'll get to him a little louder here in a second. Liam Neeson, should studios still be casting you in your 60s as an action movie star?
No.
It's exactly right. Even Liam Neeson is out there saying that he's asking his agent, do they know that I'm in my 60s? While they're putting me in like Runaway Train action movies where he has a particular set of skills. What are the polls?
Do the Vandy boys win tonight? 74% say yes.
I think Tony Vitello made his prediction. He called a shot for Mississippi State. And Kevin Kugler, he can't make predictions as somebody who's objective in calling the game tonight for Westwood One, which, of course, you can hear here on 104.5 The Zone later tonight. But it sounds like Mississippi State, just because Vandy kind of rolled yesterday, sounds like maybe my perception of what Mississippi State actually is being influenced by recency bias. So if the smart people are leaning, and in the case of Vitello straight up saying that he thinks Mississippi State's got it in them tonight, I would be inclined to see that, especially if they choose to save Rocker for Game 3, which it sounds like would be the correct decision at this point.
Who's the best under 25 quarterback in the NFL? Now, the majority, 64%, said Josh Allen, but he is 25. He is not under 25.
Yeah.
So the next highest majority is Justin Herbert at 23%, Lamar Jackson, 7%, Kyler Murray, 6%.
Is that just because Titans fans hate Lamar? Like that's all that I don't have any Ravens fans. I can't imagine following me on Twitter. So is that just the Titans hating the Ravens? Because that's stupid.
Yeah, probably has something to do with it.
That's dumb. The idea that they would pick Justin Herbert, the majority would pick Justin Herbert over the MVP, the not reigning MVP because that's Aaron Rodgers, but the 2019 MVP. That's asinine to me.
How excited are you about the NHL 2022 Stadium Series coming to Nashville on a scale of 1 to 10? 49% are between 8 and 10, 29% between 4 and 7, 22% are not that excited between 1 and 3.
It's a 2022 event, so I think it's announced yesterday. I think the people, I think sports fans in Nashville should be ecstatic. It's just another reason for us to showcase our city and how well we do events. In fact, I know Butch Spearden was just on Blaine and Mickey. Lucas, maybe, I don't know if it's worth having Butch on now. I want to have Butch on when it's more impactful, like, them making a bid for the damn NFL Combine, which is going to immediately piss me off. But it is just another opportunity to show the rest of the world, the rest of the country, how well we do things. And we will do it well. Nissan Stadium will host outdoor hockey exceptionally well. As Rhett Bryan said, perhaps the Titans will be concluding their Super Bowl parade right when the Stadium Series, right when the Preds face off against the Lightning in February of 2022. But I think it's tough to gauge people's excitement, and this is, not only one faulty poll by me, but two, given that Josh Allen is actually 25, because we're trying to gauge people's excitement about something that's not going to happen for over a calendar year.
Which one of these is the Paul George of the NFL? Ryan Tannehill, Matthew Stafford, or other? 55% say Stafford, 36% say Ryan Tannehill, and I haven't seen any other options, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. We were thinking about this. So basically, to be the Paul George of the NFL, it's a player who needs to win something to be considered great, because Paul George put up 41 last night. He's one of a select few that includes Jordan and Kobe having scored 20-plus points in 18 of their playoff games at this point in his career. But Paul George, with 41 last night, the people will continue to cite 2 missed free throws at the end of the, what are they calling DeAndre Ayton's alley-oop dunk to win it? The Valley-oop?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So not only will the end of that Suns-Clippers game be remembered for what Crowder and Ayton were able to do, but for the fact that Paul George missed 2 free throws that would have effectively sealed that game for Los Angeles. I mean, Stafford doesn't have a playoff victory to his name. Tannehill is 2-2 in the postseason.
But Stafford has had the better individual career.
By a mile.
Yeah, it's not close.
Yeah, it's really not. Matt Stafford is going to be leading the NFL historically in all manner of passing categories, because he was right there at the precipice when the NFL became a passing league, and the numbers will reflect that at the end of his career. Mark Mabry says on YouTube, Matt Ryan should beat out either of those. No, Matt Ryan has been to a Super Bowl. Matt Ryan has won the NFC. Matt Ryan is he is not a Super Bowl MVP, but he is an MVP. Matt Ryan has won things that are substantive. The best thing on Ryan Tannehill's career resume right now is Comeback Player of the Year.
Which Euro 2020 game was the most exciting yesterday? France versus Switzerland or Spain versus Croatia? 73% say it was France-Switzerland.
I didn't watch, so I have no opinion on this. You may provide the audience the proper
context. I think it was France-Switzerland because of the gravity of the upset, and it just felt more – when France are up 3-1 late in the game, you are writing off the Swiss, and they came back in a major way, and to win in penalties, what a moment.
You never write off the Swiss.
Right. That's what they say.
Also, they say it's coming home.
That's what they say, but it's not.
I can't understand why you are so embittered about about England potentially being able to oust Germany up 2-0 right now.
They're just entitled. Like, they think that because they invented the sport, they deserve every accolade and that they should win every trophy. But they're not. They have heartbreaking losses in every major tournament, and I find it hilarious.
You deal with entitlement for nearly 4 hours every weekday. Are you rooting against the entitled? because that would be actively working against this show.
I don't want more. I don't want more entitlement. The English are entitled.
That's a fair. Maybe that's why I like the English so much. Very self-aware of what they should, what they deserve.
But again, they've knocked Germany out of this tournament, and for that, I am grateful.
So I am grateful for all of your participation throughout the course of today. It's been a fun show. If you missed any of the show, if you missed Tony Vitello, if you missed Kevin Kugler, you can preview tonight's games via the podcast, the Buck Reising Show, in your favorite podcast app. Speaking of podcasts, new 615 sessions available in your podcast feeds as well. Alan Bell, Joe Rexroad, we had a great time. You're not going to want to miss it. And if you happen to be scrolling through Instagram, I'm doing a Titans Q&A on the A to Z Sports Instagram story. What is going to continue to keep you entertained, soccer or otherwise, is Blaine and Mickey, because they got a loaded show, and you know that they're coming up next.
Believe me, they sound better than they look. 104.5 The Zone TV. Live on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and Periscope.